My daughter-in-law left me alone on Christmas, so I canceled the $18,500 vacation booking. I was folding a towel when I first felt it. That little pinch behind my ribs, the one my mother used to call the warning ache. The towel was blue, a soft blue like the sky before a storm. I had washed it 3 times that week because I could not stop cleaning. That is what widows do. We scrub when we cannot scream. I folded the towel into a perfect square and placed it on the stack of 11 other perfect squares. My hands were dry, the knuckles swollen from 68 years of holding on too tight. My daughter-in-law Claire called me that morning. Her voice had that sing-song quality she used when she wanted something. She never called just to hear my voice, not since my son Mark married her 7 years ago. In the beginning, she called to ask for recipes. Then she called to ask for babysitting. Then she called to ask for money. This time she called to confirm the vacation. The vacation. That word still tastes like ash in my mouth. We had planned it for months. A family trip to the Florida Keys, all 12 of us. Mark and Claire, their 3 children, my daughter Sarah and her husband and their 2 kids, my sister Margaret and her husband, and me, the grandmother, the one who paid for the whole thing. $18,500. That was my share. The houses we rented, the boats we booked.
The dinners at restaurants I would never choose for myself, because $42 for a piece of fish is insanity when you grew up on casseroles and leftovers. But I paid. I paid because Claire said it would be the last trip with all the grandkids together before the oldest started high school. She said it so sweetly. A family legacy, she called it. A memory we would hold on to when we were old. I laughed at that. I was already old. I am 69 years old. My husband Robert has been dead for 4 years. Lung cancer took him slow and ugly. I watched him shrink from a man who could lift a refrigerator to a skeleton who could not lift a spoon. Claire was not there for that. She came to the funeral in a black dress that cost more than my first car. She hugged me and whispered, "Let us know if you need anything." Then she did not call for 6 months. But I paid for the vacation. $18,500 from the account Robert and I built together over 42 years. The account that was supposed to be for my nursing home. The account that was supposed to be for my old age when I could not live alone anymore. I took out that money and I transferred it to Claire because she said the rental company needed a single payment, and she said it would be easier if I just put it on my card and she would pay me back for her family share. She never paid me back. That was the first crack, the one I ignored because I wanted to believe she forgot. Because I wanted to believe my family still saw me as a person and not a bank with a heartbeat. I told myself she was busy. 3 children, a part-time job at a real estate office, a husband who traveled too much. I made excuses for her the way I had made excuses for everyone my entire life. The morning she called to confirm the vacation, I was in my laundry room. The machine was humming. The air smelled like lavender dryer sheets. I had my reading glasses on top of my head. My hair was gray and thin, and I had not dyed it in 2 years because I stopped caring what people thought, or so I told myself. Claire said, "Mom, can you hear me?" She called me Mom, not my name, not Diane. Mom. That word used to fill me with warmth. Now it feels like a transaction. I said, "I can hear you, sweetheart." She said, "We need to talk about the sleeping arrangements." I said, "Okay." She said, "Mark and I have been talking, and we think it would be better if you stayed in the smaller house." The smaller house. There were 2 houses, a big one with 4 bedrooms and a pool, a smaller one with 2 bedrooms and a pull-out couch. I had assumed I would stay in the big house because I was paying for the big house. That was a reasonable assumption. But Claire had a different idea. She said, "The kids need their own rooms. You know how teenagers are. They need space. And Margaret and her husband need a private bathroom because of his bad back. So we thought you would be more comfortable in the smaller house. It is quieter. You can have your own routine." I stood there in my laundry room with a towel in my hands. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 9:14 in the morning. Robert had given me that clock for our 20th anniversary. It had a little bird on it that chirped every hour. The bird did not chirp anymore because I had taken the batteries out after Robert died. The silence was easier. I said, "Okay." That is what I always say. "Okay. Yes, of course, whatever you need." I have been saying okay for 69 years. I said okay when my mother told me to marry Robert instead of going to college. I said okay when my boss said I could not have the promotion because I was pregnant with Sarah. I said okay when Robert came home drunk and mean and told me I was lucky he stayed. I said okay when my own daughter forgot my birthday 2 years in a row. I said okay when Mark told me he was moving to the other side of the city and would only visit once a month. I am so tired of okay. Claire kept talking. She said the small house was actually a blessing because it was closer to the beach. She said I would love the sunrises. She said the grandkids would come visit me every morning. She said it would be like having my own little cottage. I knew she was lying. I have been a mother for 46 years. I know when someone is lying to me, but I did not say anything. I just folded another towel, a white one this time, stark white, the kind that shows every stain.
Then she said something that made my hand stop mid-fold. She said, "And Mom, we need to talk about Christmas." Christmas was 3 weeks away. I had already bought presents for everyone. I had spent almost $2,000. Action figures for the boys, a dollhouse for the little girl, a cashmere scarf for Claire, a new set of golf clubs for Mark, a necklace for Sarah, a watch for her husband, books for Margaret, a puzzle for her husband. I had wrapped everything in gold paper with red ribbons. The presents were stacked in my guest bedroom because I did not have a tree. I stopped putting up a tree after Robert died. It was too much work for one person. Claire said, "We decided to do something different this year." I said, "Okay." She said, "We are going to Mark's brother's house in Vermont. You know his brother, David. He has that big cabin in the mountains. We are going to do a white Christmas. The kids have never seen real snow. It is going to be magical." I did not know David. I had met him twice. He was Mark's half-brother from Robert's first marriage, a marriage that happened before I was even in the picture. David had never liked me. He thought I was the reason his parents divorced. I was not, but that did not matter. What mattered was that Claire was telling me my family was going to Vermont for Christmas, and I was not invited. I said, "That sounds lovely." She said, "We will miss you, but you understand." I did not understand, but I said I did. I said, "Of course." I said, "You should go." I said the kids need to see snow. I said I will be fine here. I have my church friends, I have my book club, I have my garden. None of that was true. My church friends had mostly died or moved to Florida. My book club stopped meeting because the woman who hosted it got dementia. My garden was dead because I had stopped watering it in October. I had nothing. I had a house full of towels and a guest bedroom full of presents and a heart full of something I could not name. Claire said one more thing. I said, "What is that?" She said, "You are still coming to the Keys, right? The vacation is still on? We need the final payment for the boat rental by Friday." The boat rental? Another $500, on top of the $18,500, on top of the presents, on top of everything I had already given and given and given. I said, "I will send the money." She said, "You are the best mom. The kids are so excited. Lucas talks about swimming with the dolphins every single day." Lucas was my favorite, 8 years old, big brown eyes like his father. He still held my hand when we walked. He still asked me to read him stories. He still believed I was magic because I could make pancakes in the shape of animals. I thought about his face, and I felt my throat close up. I wanted to see him in the snow. I wanted to watch him catch snowflakes on his tongue, but I would not see that because I was not invited. I hung up the phone, and I sat down on the floor of my laundry room.
The floor was cold tile. I had put that tile in myself 20 years ago. Robert had watched from his recliner and told me I was doing it wrong. I did it anyway. It was crooked in some places, but it was mine. I sat there for a long time. The washing machine finished its cycle and beeped. I did not move. The dryer beeped. I did not move. The sun moved across the floor and then disappeared. I sat in the dark. I thought about my life. I thought about the choices I had made. I thought about the years I had spent being a good mother and a good wife, and a good grandmother and a good sister and a good daughter. I had been so good. I had been so good that I had disappeared. There was no Diane left. There was only Mom, only Grandma, only the woman who paid for things and said okay, and folded towels and sat alone in the dark. The next day I called Claire back. I told her I needed to think about the vacation. I told her I was not sure I could afford it after all. She got quiet, that sharp quiet that comes before a fight. She said, "But you promised." She said, "The kids are so excited." She said, "You cannot do this to them." She said, "It is not fair." Not fair. She said that to me, the woman who had taken $18,500 and never said thank you, the woman who was taking my family to Vermont without me, the woman who had never once asked how I was doing since Robert died. She said, "Not fair." I said, "I will think about it."
She said, "Think fast, because the boat rental is due Friday."
I hung up. Then I called my daughter, Sarah. Sarah is 43. She lives 40 minutes away. She used to visit every week. Then she got a new husband, a man named Paul who sells medical equipment. Paul does not like me. I do not know why. I have never been anything but kind to him. I have never criticized his cooking or his career or his political opinions, but he does not like me. And because he does not like me, Sarah does not visit anymore. She answered on the fourth ring. I could hear noise in the background. Children screaming, a television, Paul yelling something about a remote control. I said, "Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something." She said, "Can it wait? I am in the middle of something." I said, "It is important." She sighed. That sigh that says, "You are a burden." That sigh that says, "I do not have time for you." That sigh that says, "Why are you still here?" I said, "Claire invited the family to Vermont for Christmas. They are not coming here." Sarah said, "I know." I said, "You knew?" She said, "Claire told thee 2 weeks ago. She asked if we wanted to come." I said, "Yes, Paul is excited. He loves skiing." I said, "You were not going to tell me?" She said, "I was going to tell you. I just didn't want to hurt your feelings." I said, "You are hurting my feelings right now." She said, "Mom, you are being dramatic. It is one Christmas. You can spend it with your friends. You always say you have friends." I did not have friends. She knew I did not have friends, but she said it anyway because it was easier than saying the truth. The truth was that she did not want me there. The truth was that I was embarrassing to her, an old woman with gray hair and wrinkled hands and a house that smelled like lavender, a reminder of what she would become someday, a future she was running from as fast as she could. I said, "Do you want me to come to the Keys?" She said, "What?" I said, "The vacation, the Florida Keys. Do you want me there?" There was a long pause. I heard Paul yell something in the background. I heard Sarah cover the phone with her hand. I heard muffled words. Then she came back on the line. She said, "Mom, Claire thinks it would be better if you stayed home." I said, "Why?" She said, "Because you are going to need help. You are not as mobile as you used to be. The beach is hard to walk on. The stairs in the big house are steep. Everyone is worried about you. They think you will be safer at home." I said, "Who is everyone?" She said, "Just everyone. Mark, Claire, me, Paul. We want what is best for you." I said, "Who is going to watch the kids?" She said, "What?" I said, "If I am not there, who is going to watch the kids while you and Claire go to the spa? Who is going to make breakfast while you sleep in? Who is going to pay for the dinners and the boats and the rental houses?" She got very quiet. I said, "I know about the money, Sarah. I know I paid for everything. I know Claire never paid me back. I know you never offered to help. I know you all see me as an ATM with a pulse. I know you are waiting for me to die so you can sell my house and split the money and forget I ever existed." She started crying, or pretending to cry. I could not tell anymore. She said, "That is not true." She said, "We love you." She said, "You are our mother." She said, "How could you say something so horrible?" I said, "Because it is true." She said, "I am going to hang up now. I am going to pretend you did not say that. When you are ready to apologize, you can call me back." She hung up. I sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I had cooked 10,000 meals, the same kitchen where I had taught Sarah to bake cookies, the same kitchen where Mark had done his homework at the table, the same kitchen where Robert had proposed to me 45 years ago. He got down on one knee, right there by the refrigerator. I said yes. I said okay. I said whatever you want. I looked at the phone in my hand. Then I opened the banking app. I saw the transaction, the $18,500, the $500 for the boat, the $2,000 for the presents. I saw my savings account, what was left of it, what was left of 42 years of careful saving, 42 years of clipping coupons and buying generic brands and driving old cars so my children could have new shoes and new coats and new computers. I thought about the future. I thought about the nursing home I would never be able to afford now. I thought about the holidays I would spend alone. I thought about the phone that would stop ringing. I thought about the birthdays nobody would remember. Then I called the travel agency. A woman answered. Her name was Brenda. She had a kind voice, the kind of voice that sounds like it has seen a lot of sad things and learned to stay soft anyway. I said, "I need to cancel a vacation booking."
She said, "Can I have the confirmation number?" I gave it to her. The number Claire had sent me in an email. The email that said, "Final payment due, and thank you so much, Mom. You are a lifesaver." Brenda typed for a minute. Then she said, "I see the reservation. 2 houses in the Florida Keys, a big one and a small one. Total cost $18,500, paid in full. Is that correct?" I said yes. She said, "And you want to cancel?" I said yes. She said, "I have to tell you the cancellation fee is 50%. You will only get back $9,250. 50%. $9,000 gone. Just like that. Because I had been stupid enough to trust people who did not trust me back." I said, "Cancel it anyway." Brenda said, "Are you sure?" I said, "I have never been more sure of anything in my life." She said, "Okay, I will process the refund. It should appear in your account in 3 to 5 business days." I said, "Thank you, Brenda." She said, "I am sorry you cannot take the trip." I said, "I am sorry too, but not for the reason you think." I hung up. Then I took the presents out of the guest bedroom, all $2,000 worth of them. The action figures, the dollhouse, the cashmere scarf, the golf clubs, the necklace, the watch, the books, the puzzle. I put them all in black trash bags, 4 bags full of gold paper and red ribbons. Then I drove to the Goodwill on the other side of town, the one where nobody knew me. The woman at the donation counter looked at the bags. She said, "Are these all new?" I said yes. She said, "Are you sure you want to donate them?" I said yes. She said, "Okay, God bless you." God bless me. I almost laughed. God had not blessed me. God had given me a husband who drank too much, and children who loved my money more than my heart, and a daughter-in-law who saw me as a problem to be managed. But I did not say that. I just got back in my car and drove home. The phone rang 3 times that night. Claire, Sarah, Mark. I did not answer. The voicemails were the same. Anger, confusion, fake concern. Claire said the travel agency called. They said you canceled the vacation. Is that a joke? Sarah said, "I cannot believe you would do this to the children." Mark said, "Mom, call me back. We need to talk about this. We need to figure out a solution." A solution? There was no solution. There was only the truth. And the truth was that I had been used. For years, for decades, for my entire adult life. I had been used by my husband and my children and my sister and everyone else who saw my kindness as weakness. I had given and given and given until there was nothing left to give. And now I was the bad guy because I finally stopped. Christmas came. I spent it alone. I made a small turkey breast. I mashed 2 potatoes. I opened a can of cranberry sauce. I ate at the kitchen table. The same table where we had once sat 12 people. The same table where Robert used to carve the turkey. The same table where the children used to fight over the wishbone. The phone did not ring. Not once. Not from Sarah. Not from Mark. Not from Claire. Not from Margaret. I was dead to them. Or worse, I was alive, but invisible. I watched the news. I watched a movie. I went to bed at 8:30. The house was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming. I could hear the wind outside. I could hear my own heart beating. A stubborn sound. A sound that refused to stop even when everything else had stopped. The next day I drove to the cemetery. I stood at Robert's grave. The stone was gray. His name was carved into it. The dates of his birth and death. A small American flag because he had served in the army. I stood there for a long time. The wind was cold. The sky was white. I talked to him. I said, "You were not a good husband. You were not a good father. But you were mine." And I stayed. I stayed because I did not know how to leave. I stayed because I thought loyalty meant something. I stayed because I was afraid of being alone. And now I am alone anyway. So I guess the fear did not matter. The wind did not answer. The dead do not answer. That is the thing about giving everything to other people. You end up standing in a cemetery, talking to a stone, because there is nobody left who will listen. I went home. I sat in my chair, the blue recliner where I had spent 10,000 hours. I looked at the walls, the photographs, Sarah's wedding, Mark's graduation, the grandchildren as babies, Robert on our honeymoon. All those smiles, all those moments, all those lies. I thought about the Keys. I thought about the beach. I thought about the dolphins Lucas would never swim with because of me. Or maybe he would.
Maybe Claire would find another grandmother to pay for it, some other old woman with a full bank account and an empty heart. I thought about the $9,000 I got back. What would I do with it? Pay bills? Buy groceries? Fix the leak in the bathroom? Save the rest for the nursing home that was coming for me sooner than I wanted? I thought about calling Sarah, apologizing, begging her to forgive me, offering to pay for another trip, anything to hear her voice again, anything to hold my grandchildren again, anything to not be alone. But I did not call, because I was done saying okay. I was done folding towels and pretending everything was fine. I was done being the bank. I was done being the babysitter. I was done being the one who sacrificed so everyone else could have more. I was done. So I sat in my chair, and I watched the sunset.
And I let the silence wrap around me like a blanket, cold, heavy, but mine. The phone stayed quiet. The house stayed quiet. And I stayed. Because that is what old women do. We stay. We stay in our houses and in our chairs and in our memories. We stay long after everyone has left. We stay because leaving would mean admitting that none of it mattered. The love, the sacrifice, the years, all of it gone like water through fingers. But here is the thing about staying. You learn to find small things. The way light comes through the window at 4 o'clock. The way coffee smells in the morning. The way a towel feels when it is warm from the dryer. Small things. Small reasons. I am still here. I am 69 years old. I am alone. I am broke. I am forgotten. But I am not a fool anymore. And that is something. That is everything.